Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman that I actually had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year across the social media lines. I reached out to her after having an opportunity to check out some of the things that she was doing, and she so graciously accepted the invite to be a guest on the show. So I'm thankful for that. She's an author, she's a life coach, she's a public speaker, but her most important title is she's a woman of God. And she's taking time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us today to share a little bit of her journey, a little bit of her story with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting others, especially as it deals with facing challenges and moments of adversity in life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our special guest today, the very own Miss Angela Wynette. Angela, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and thinking enough of me to even want to invite me. It's always a privilege when others want me to collaborate and share with them. So I always consider it an honor. So thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump into our segments for the day, I do want to give you an opportunity to do a little brief introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our audience a taste of who is Angela Wynette.
Well, as he stated, guys, I am Angela Wynette, born and raised here in the DFW, Dallas Fort Worth area, a graduate from Cedar Hill High School and the University of Texas at Arlington. I still live in Dallas. That is home for me, where my family is. That's where my practice is based out of. I am a life coach, a motivational speaker, and an author. I have 5 published books out, as well as an inspirational t shirt line as well. And so I love doing what I do. I love giving back. I love sharing with others. I love helping, breaking generational cycles. And so any way I can be of an asset, I am always on board.
Absolutely. I love that. Love that. Definitely some good stuff. So, again, I'm thankful for you being on the show today, and I know our listeners are going to be blessed as well as myself. So, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. We're going to jump right into this. So Angela, one of the things that I always like to do anytime I bring a guest on the show and we're starting to talk about your journey and your story, if you will, is I think it's really important for us to take a moment to reflect back on where it all starts.
Right.
There's a lot of things that go on as far back as childhood that we may not understand in that moment in time, the certain events that are taking place in our lives or the people that we're encountering. But if you really take a moment to think about it, what you're doing in the present day and time, you start to begin to connect some of the dots. Some of those
Right.
moments of experience, good, bad, or otherwise, somehow begin to start clicking and making some sense as to why I had to be there and go through what I had to go through to get to the place that I am right now.
Right.
So, with that said, I want to take a moment with you as well, if you would, to just take us back to the beginning of where it all starts for you. And if you would share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there's any particular challenges that come to mind, you can share those as well. Kind of give us the foundational basis of where your story begins.
About me. So again, like I said, born and raised here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, specifically Arlington, and come from a two-parent household. My parents are high school sweethearts. They're still together to this day, 42 years later. My dad is a pastor and has been all my life. So I am a PK's kid, grew up in church. That is my foundation. That's my background. And my mom was an elementary teacher, and then she switched over and is now an daycare decorator. She does with the coordination of that. So she's their coordinator. And I have 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. I'm the middle child. So I can say life for me was good. I didn't really struggle. I didn't really, as far as, you know, quote unquote, knowing that we were poor, my parents always made it feel privileged,
Mm-hmm.
so if we struggled, they withheld that. And I didn't realize it until I got older. My grandparents were very influential in my life. My dad's father was a pastor. My mom's father was a deacon in the church. So, we were just very immersed in the church. And my family is very strong in the church and in our faith and our religion. And so that was always a good foundation for me. We were so close, both sides of my family, my mom and dad's side of the family, that growing up, I didn't even know what the word in-laws was. I just thought we were all one big happy family until we got older. They were like, "Oh, well, yeah, your mom's out here, you're the in-laws." And I was, "What is that?" I was like, because we did everything together. We did family reunions together, holidays together, So it was just one big cohesive family. So family has always been a big thing to me. So that's always been the core of who I am when it comes to people in my life. Like that's a very big, important foundation for me.
Wow, wow. I love to hear that. just again the cohesiveness of your family unit. Clearly, lots of love, lots of communing with one another, just supporting of each other, and of course, obviously the thing that stands out the most is your your godly faith foundation basis of growing up. Again, growing up, in the home where dad's a pastor, and
Yes.
that just kind of being your experience. And so again, even and sometimes people, when I ask this question, sometimes people are waiting to hear the shocking, grueling, upbringing, if you will. And it doesn't always have to be that in order
Right.
for you to have, a powerful experience later on in life. And just what you share with me right there lets me know, when I think about what you do, on a day to day right now, motivating, inspiring, whether it's in your speaking or in your writing of books, again, just taking this moment, right, that's just like we did, to reflect back on where it all starts. It explains everything to me, why you would be walking in the way that you're walking in right now, walking in your purpose, to pour back some of that love and some of those
Yes.
same experiences that you had the pleasure of enjoying. Because unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who do that anymore. They
Right.
kind of take on a mindset of, I got mine, so you get yours. But you're taking the time
Right.
out to say, I don't take what took place for granted. I consider this to be a blessing that I had both of my
Right.
parents around, and that they're still together today, and that we had
Right.
this big family unit working together, and it's resonating in the works that you're doing today. So again, I thank you for sharing that, because it's important for people to understand how significantly important family is.
Yes.
And when you can
Yes.
make that thing happen, and when you make the sacrifices, because as you shared, I didn't know that we had some financial struggles, because again, when the love is present, and when
Right.
that continuity is present, then those things don't even begin to surface at the top of being important, because again, you got family, so yeah, everything
Right.
is going to work itself all right, and we're not concerned about how much money we got in the bank or things like that, because we know we got each other. And
Right.
so again, I appreciate you sharing that. So great stuff, some great stuff there. So
Thank
Angela, as you know, of course, we go through our childhoods, whether it's
you.
good, bad, or otherwise, and of course, as we enter into adulthood, the experiences of life still continue to come. Some are great and fascinating and exciting, but every now and then, in the middle of those experiences, will come a series of storms, if you will. And some of those storms can hit you in a way that almost feels like the equivalent of a gut punch, if you will, to
Right.
the point that, in some instances, we may get hit with a storm or valley experience of life that weighs on us so heavily that we actually start to question, how
Right.
am I going to get through this particular situation? And that is even so, contrary to those who might not think, who may think otherwise. That's even if you've grown up in the church, and
Yes,
been
sir.
a believer.
Yes.
Believers, can feel stress and
Yes.
worry too. In fact, and
Yes.
that's a whole nother conversation for another day. As a believer, you should actually expect more
Expect.
challenging
Yes.
things to come your way, just because
You
of your
accept that?
faith walk.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so with that said, if you would share with us about a time where you kind of felt just like that you were facing a situation that you didn't know how you were going to overcome this. This wasn't something you could throw some money at or make a phone call to make it go away or anything like that. You might have felt a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, maybe anxious, maybe fearing, maybe worrying a bit more than normal. What was that experience like for you? If you would kind of share that with us, and what was ultimately the turning point when you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of it?
Right. Surprisingly for me, that came at one of my toughest moments in life where I was 19, just in ending the beginning freshman year, first session of my freshman year, and I was diagnosed with cancer. I was the first and only
Mm,
case in my family with ovarian and cervical. And it was one of those things, once we got the diagnosis, it was, we got to do surgery immediately. And so it wasn't really enough time to process. And being young, just getting life started, um, I was in denial about a lot of things. I was, trying to push through and act like everything was fine. And because I did not take the time to sit and actually acknowledge such a devastating blow, it began to spiral in my life. I began to spiral. My faith was not as strong as it was, believe it or not. Like you said, growing up as a pastor's daughter, my walk, I hadn't really established that with God in the moment. But going through this process, it made me. The Lord really had to get my attention in the fact that He set me down, and I still was able to go to college. I still succeeded, Dean's List, graduated with honors, graduated early by His grace. He still kept me. Um, But it was a struggle. There was times where I had mental breakdowns, where I was, I had suicidal thoughts because I found out that they said I wasn't going to be able to have kids. And as a young woman, that's, your desire. And so these blows kept coming back to back to back. And it was in those moments where I was just like, okay, we can't pray this away. We can't just quote some Bible scriptures and it's just going to go away. There were some things where I literally had to put my faith to work. And I really had to say, okay, God, I trust you, even when I can't trace you, even when I don't understand why, even when I have the questions and I'm angry. And I was angry. I got upset with God. I turned away from Him for a second and I tried to do my own thing that only made it worse. And like I said, it began to show in my lifestyle. I got into a toxic relationship. I ended up pushing away from that family that was my core unit. And I was on this island all by myself. And it took for me to have to go through that storm to appreciate where I am now. And I also know that God had to use that test as part of my testimony. And
Mm-hmm.
that trial was just a part of my triumph to show people that that diagnosis is not a death sentence, and that does not mean that that's your final destination. That is just a pause in where He has you to plan you for your purpose. And once I realized that, and again, having a praying family, having praying grandmothers who would pour into me, who saw things in me that I couldn't see myself in that season, and they didn't give up on me, even when I pushed everyone away. Even when I secluded myself and made horrible decisions, they still loved me. And seeing their love was a reflection of God's heart, saying, no matter how messed up you are, no matter how bad you do, I still love you. I still have a purpose for you. I still have a plan for you. And I'm just waiting on you to come back to me. And so it was a tough time. It was a tough time. My whole college experience, I was sick. So it was a tough time. I didn't really get to experience it like most. But I'm still grateful. Like I said, I was still able to go to college, graduate, still have my degrees. And, so God was still faithful, even when I couldn't see it in that moment. Now I'm grateful for the experience and I wouldn't change it or regret it for the world.
Wow, wow. Let me first start off by saying, thank you for your transparency and sharing that. Even though I know that that's been some time ago, this diagnosis, I'm sure it can never be easy to have that conversation. But
Right.
and I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like you said, at a very early age, just getting into the entry point of adulthood, so to speak, with college life and all that you're expecting it to be, and then now having to compete as you're trying to figure out, navigate your studies and all of that, dealing
Right.
with the such a significant diagnosis in terms of your health
Right.
and the things that it was going to potentially eliminate, such as you mentioned, being able to have children and things of that nature. But as you shared, you know, God has to when He desires to call upon you to bring not only bring you into a relationship with Him, but when He has that designated purpose for your life, part of that process does include you having to go through some stuff,
Right.
because and it's not the equivalent to like hazing, if you will, or anything like
Right.
that, but it's more about working you out spiritually,
Right.
tapping into you in ways and stretching you in ways that He knows in our own human condition we would never necessarily volunteer to do
Right.
on our own. Who's going to volunteer to say, okay, give me cancer to see if I
Right.
got faith? We don't do
Right.
that. Give me,
Right.
make life difficult for me financially. Make life difficult for me in this area or that area of my life. We don't do that. It's not natural for us in our human condition,
Right.
but that's why God is God, and He understands the bigger picture, the long-term picture. And so, as you said, this test was necessary in order for you to be catapulted into what was ultimately going to be your testimony. In order for you to be able to do the works that you're doing yet again today, you had to
Right.
go through that experience. And and then when I think about the fact, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, of your upbringing, you grew up in a God-fearing household. But like many kids, even if your parent is not a pastor, if you have parents that raise you up in the church, that's always a positive thing. But a
Right.
lot of times for kids growing up, even, and I would say it would even apply to a preacher's kid, sometimes in the growing up of that environment, there's the question of how much am I doing this walk based upon my parents having me do it,
Right.
and how much is it about me personally
Right.
having my own relationship with God. And I think,
Right.
there are times for those of us who, as we're on that walk, there has to be a point where He has to confirm in us that you're doing it for you.
Right.
That's not for your mom or dad or
Right.
grandma or somebody else in the family. It's not to impress friends or anything. This is a personal relationship between me and you. And what better way for me to test it than to give you a trial of some sort that you have nobody that you can go to but me. Like you said,
Right.
I couldn't. While prayer is powerful and prayer is good, I can't pray the cancer away. Not
Right.
at least not literally. I can't
Right.
literally make it just
Right.
snap away like at the a magic wand, so to speak, or anything like that. I can't buy it away. I can't. There's not a status that I can hold and it all of a sudden it disappears. I had to deal with this thing head on. But in the midst of it all, God was there with you every step of the way. And
Yes.
because of your faithfulness, because of you continue to depend upon him in spite of how you were feeling. And
Right.
I love the fact that you pointed that out because I think a lot of times people miss that, particularly Christians, is that God understands that there are going to be some times where you're going through and you're going to be mad at
Right.
God. You're going to be feeling some kind of way. And he's not offended that you're mad because
Right.
he understands that
Right.
in your human condition, that's just how you're going to feel. You're not going to always understand, why is this happening to me and the way that it's happening to me. He gets it.
Right.
You can be. It's possible for any of us to be angry or frustrated or in any particular situation and start to act out a bit or whatever. That's kind of part of the process. But at some point, as you did, you kind of have to come to that head where you say, you know what, now that I kind of got all of this up out of my system, I've let my frustration out. I now need to lock in and focus on him, and it's clear that that's what you did. And in that, he allowed you to push through this situation, and clearly he still had work for you to do because if he
Yeah.
didn't, you wouldn't be around to have this conversation or any of the other
Right.
conversations that you've been able to have to share your story with other people. So I'm thankful for that, and again, it's just a testimony of you understanding, about the fact that storms, while they aren't always comfortable, while they're not always easy to process, they're not intended to destroy you. It's
Right.
not the end of the story for you.
Right.
It's not your, a dead end moment. It's actually an opportunity. And once you
Right.
start looking at storms as opportunities for growth, as opportunities for development, it's then where you begin to see storms from a different perspective. And specifically, you begin to see it from God's perspective because now
Right.
you're looking at that storm through godly lenses instead of through worldly lenses.
Right.
Because the
Right.
worldly lenses would say, I'm a victim,
Right.
woe is me,
Right.
pity, pity me, but a godly perspective says, okay, this doesn't feel good, but Lord, if you allowed this storm to come my way, because I know it has to have your permission to come my way,
Right.
you must have a purpose for me. And any purpose that you have for me is always going to be for my good, whether it's to
Right.
bless me or
That's
whether
it.
it's to equip me to be a blessing to
Right.
other people. And clearly in your life, it's been a little bit of both. You got some blessings and he's equipped you to be a blessing to others.
Yes.
So again, appreciate you sharing that. Very, very powerful, and again, your transparency means a lot. And I know our listeners already are being blessed in what you shared so far. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Um, so Angela, obviously you shared some pretty heavy stuff. Again, a cancer diagnosis of any kind is nothing to sneeze at, so to speak. But as we know, our storms of life sometimes they're heavy as things like cancer, and then sometimes those storms are just lifing type stuff. Just
Right.
the daily nuances, whether it's a unexpected car repair or some other random inconvenience, if you will. So with that said, what I'm interested in knowing from you is when you do find yourself facing challenging times, moments of adversity, things of that, whether it's something major or just again lifing type stuff, what is it that you specifically like to do in terms of what's your routine, your regiment that you like to follow that kind of helps you process in a healthy and productive way how to deal with those moments of adversity and challenges and work through that thing, in a way where it's again where it's productive, where you're not kind of all over the place, but you're literally locked in and focused and being able to deal with your emotions and everything that goes along with that. What does that look like for you?
For me, I am really big on sitting still and getting in God's presence. So
Mm,
I do a lot of fasting time where I will just cut off everything. No social media unless it's just for business, no TV, cut off all types of foods, no sugars, no sweets, no nothing, just water, fruits, and vegetables. And I will just go through a cleansing period, and I'll cut off all distractions, and I'll just get in God's presence, and I'll stay and I'll meditate, I'll exercise, And I'll just kind of journal because again, I'm a writer, love to
Mhm.
write. So for me, it's good about processing my thoughts and my feelings. And also, it's a good tracker for me. I like to write things and date it and then go back and see, where I am now versus a year ago. How has my mindset changed? How have I blossomed? What areas do I still need to work on? Because again, it's all about accountability for me. And so there are times when I have to check myself, and realize that sometimes I can be the problem and it's not other things around me or other people. And so during that time of having that accountability, I sit down and I have those tough conversations with God. Okay, reveal to me the areas that I need to do better in, ways that I can change, how I can, be a better version of Him walking this earth so that if I'm the only Bible that people see, that they're seeing a good
Mhm.
reflection of Him. And so for me, that's very important is that fasting time for me.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I definitely think that when you're going through challenging times, and I think I tapped into a little bit of this earlier, is just there has to be that moment where you sort of purge, so you kind of release whatever it is that you're feeling inside.
Right.
Because so oftentimes, we kind of take on the tough guy, tough girl mode, where I'm gonna hold it in because I'm strong and I'm not gonna let this
Right.
get to me. Not understanding that as we're holding this all inside, it's really the equivalent of holding poison inside of us, and
Yes.
and somehow thinking that if we hold it in, that we're going to eventually feel better, when in fact, if it's poison inside of you, you need to let that up out of you. And so when you're facing those challenging moments, those difficult times, whatever they may be, it's important to have a way to just, again, a healthy way
Right.
preferably, but a way to let it out. So when you talked about that cleansing, and you hit it on really the top of the list type of way to do that, of course, is through fasting, as you shared. To just sort of purge yourself. And fasting is not just, while it's oftentimes associated with food, that's part of it, but,
Right.
just fasting from the distractions of the world, anything that gets your attention, that gets you, out of focus, out of sync, whether it's the TV, the social media, the whatever. And as you said, just sit still, because, we can, talk about praying to God, and believing that He'll give us the insight and the wisdom of next steps to take and how to process it all. But at the end of the day, if you haven't had that chance to sit still, and you haven't had a chance to purge all of that out of you, you won't be able to receive what He has to offer, because
Right.
you're just too all over the place right now. You
Right.
haven't had a chance to, again, purge and just sit still, so that you can hear from Him, and hear from Him clearly as to what those next steps are. And sometimes the next steps might just simply be continue to sit still.
Right.
But whatever it is, you got to be prepared to hear it, to
Right.
receive it. But
Right.
I can't receive it if I haven't taken that moment of pause.
Right.
It's kind of something common that, I talk about quite a bit. And it's interesting you talk about T-shirt line. I have one as well. And and the
Lovely.
messaging behind that is, taking that moment to do the pause, the pray, and then the
Right.
proceed. You got to have that time to just chill for a moment. This, that woosah moment. Just kind of let
Right.
me
Right.
okay, let me get this out, and then let me pray on it, and then I can proceed based upon what God is telling me, not me
Right.
going on my own. Because if you're like me, if anytime I just ran off and did it on my own way, and didn't take time to listen to what God had to say about it, it usually results in me messing it up, or
Right.
making it
Right.
worse than what it needed to
Right.
be.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
had to learn busy doesn't mean blessed.
right,
Doesn't mean
exactly.
effective. Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. So definitely well said. Busy does not mean blessed. But for our listeners, if you've been looking for something, a way to, a proper healthy way,
Right.
to process those difficult moments, again, whether they're big or just the day to day annoyance type of things that can come our way, what Angela just shared is definitely a great starting point of, some steps to take in the mind, keep in mind as you're working through those difficult and challenging times. And you'll be surprised, at how effective that is for you, and just the peace that
Right.
comes over you. What started off as maybe seeming like it's all chaotic and frustrating and overwhelming, all of a sudden, when you experience that calm inside, and people on the and it's interesting, because other people will begin to notice it once you start practicing
Yes.
that, because
Yeah.
they'll be looking at you, and they may be aware of the situation that you're going through, or maybe they find out down the road about a time where you faced, just as you just shared right now, your story earlier. There are going to be some people, who check this out, and they're going to be like, I never knew you went through that. How do you stay so calm? How do you?
Right.
Because I'm looking at it in a different way. I'm
Right.
processing it different. I'm being less reactive and more responsive.
Right.
I'm taking that time to sit still. So all of those things play a major role in how we deal with our moments of challenge and adversity. So again, thank you for sharing how you do it. Because I definitely think that that's helpful for those who don't currently have a plan of action in that regard,
Right.
or even if you do have one, you can snatch a couple of gems, little nuggets that she's dropped, and add
Right.
that to your repertoire and fine tune it a bit. That might help
Right.
elevate your approach when you're dealing with those challenging times. So again, thanks for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
so Angela, if you had the opportunity, when you reflect back on all your experiences, good, bad, or otherwise, over the years, if you could sit across the table from the younger Angela, the Angela who had a wonderful childhood, but then boom, minute she's going into college, life just feels like it's spiraling out of control. You're getting hit with a new reality of life that you never thought you would ever see, and it's leading to pulling away from family, toxic and crazy decisions, and all of that kind of stuff going on in your life. Things that many of us at some point in life will probably find ourselves facing, regardless of whether or not the issue was cancer or something else, where we
Right.
kind of spiral out of control, and we don't have a sense of what to do because you feel so lost, so helpless. What would you say to either the younger Angela that you think she would have benefited from early, in that early stage of dealing with storms of life, or even to our listeners, somebody that's tuning in and they're right now dealing with a life situation and they feel like they're just spiraling out of control and they don't know how to properly address that, how to properly come up out of that to where they can be, leveled out and settled so they can begin to make some forward progress in dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with. What would be those words of encouragement, those words of inspiration that you would have to offer that you think would be influential to both younger Angela and to those listeners?
Something that I tell myself now, even this version of me going forward, and to all that are listening, is that situation that you're going through, that curveball that you are experiencing, that delay that you are having to go through, it's not punishment. It is not punishment, it is preparation for your purpose. And sometimes we have to go through that because sometimes we have to be forced to have to deal with the hard so that we can appreciate the good. Because
Mm-hmm.
we don't always appreciate the things that we have because we're so busy focused on what we don't have or what we have not accomplished. But we forget the process all because we didn't focus on the progress. And so we get upset about things that don't fall into order, that we don't get the yeses right away, or the no's or the rejections that we have to experience. But those rejections are not to hurt you. Sometimes they're to protect you because not all yeses are good yeses. Not all situations are beneficial. And so that's just a word of wisdom, is to take the time to stop, to seek, to pray about what it is that you're going through, get the guidance, get the understanding, to see what it is that you're supposed to be doing, what direction you're supposed to be going, what path you need to take, and then go from there. Like you said earlier, don't do those impulsive things that are going to cost us later on.
Absolutely. I love that. Love that approach. Love what you're sharing, not only with our listeners, but that message to the younger Angela. I think that that's definitely applicable at all phases of your life. Is you just gotta you have to take that moment, and I'm glad you brought that up. You have to take that moment instead of focusing on what's wrong.
Right,
um, be grateful for what is, but what has been well. We can
right,
always talk about I wish, I had this, and I hate that I don't have that, and sometimes we're looking across the way at what's going on in somebody else's life and saying, well,
right,
I do more than they do, and they have this and they have that, and
right,
and God is looking at us and saying, you know what, yeah, you might be going through some challenges, some things right now, which I've allowed that thing to happen, but at the same time, have you taken out an opportunity to show your thanks and appreciation for,
right,
the what we consider to be the little things, but really are major things, like, the fact that you were able to wake up this morning
right,
and be in your right mind with all your
right,
capacities in place, that when you woke up you weren't outside, that you had a roof over your head, and that there was, clothes in your closet and food on your shelf,
right,
and while your freezer may not have been filled with steak and lobsters, you had food. You weren't going to starve today, and you
right,
do have
right,
some transportation in the garage, and you
right,
do have a job that you get to drive it to every day that earns you money to be able
right,
to live your life and pay your bills, and maybe even have a few little pleasures along the way. Like, if we focus on and lock in on more than, to what God has done to be a blessing to us, then all of a sudden inconveniences, those those moments of discomfort, if you will, they're not given the power that we oftentimes give them.
Right.
Because we're too thankful, we're too appreciative of what God is doing in our lives, and how He's blessed us. And just to take it one step further, as you're dealing with those challenging times, if you have any type of relationship with God and you understand how He moves, I challenge you to name one time where He's come up short
Right.
in delivering you
Right.
through a challenging situation,
Right.
whether it was something minor or something major. Because last time I checked, and I think you would concur with that. Last time I checked, he's still undefeated, and I
This is
can't
it.
name one time where
This is it.
He's
Yeah.
the reason why something didn't play out well in my life. Now I can
Right.
name you multiple reasons why something didn't play out well because it was on me,
Right.
but not
Right.
because it was on him.
Right.
And then the other thing too that you made mention of, something that I thank God for every day, is understanding that every no is that you get is not it's not a bad thing. That there's blessings in the no.
Right. Right.
I thank God every day. Probably I'm at a point in my life right now where I thank Him more for the no's than I do the yeses, because I
Right.
know you just saved me from something that I
Right.
couldn't see, something that I wasn't aware of, something that looked good on the outside, or it felt good, it looked like it was the right thing. You said no, and it had nothing to do with you not being deserving of it. It had nothing to do with you being not good enough to experience it or enjoy
Right.
it. But if God has something better for you,
Right.
then you might be cool with that no. Or if He's able to see something that, while today it might look good, but 6 months from now it's going to be hell on wheels, and He just spared you from that,
Right.
you got to look at it again. This is where you go back to looking at things through godly perspective, through those godly lenses, and doing so. Okay, God, if you told me no on this, then I have to conclude that you ain't do it just because you're trying to deny me
Right.
of
Right.
pleasure or enjoyment, or of some type of blessing. You must have something better for me, for whatever the reason is, and I'm gonna receive that, and I'm gonna accept it, because I know you know better than anybody. Your infinite wisdom, your infinite perspective on life, your ability to see days, weeks, months, years ahead that I can't see.
Right.
You got my
Right.
back. So if I know that, then I'm good. I'm good with whatever decision that you have for me, and I'm also thankful for whatever it is that you have for me. If I'm never a wealthy man, if I'm never a wealthy woman, I'm thankful and I'm grateful for what you have given me, because you didn't have to give me that, but you thought enough of
Right.
me to
Right.
do that for me, and you know me well enough as to what I can handle and what I can't handle.
Right.
And
Because it
so
may not be your season,
it may not be
and
your
he
season.
knows that if he gives it to you too early, you're gonna mess it up.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
all those things you have to keep in mind, and that's what you tapped into, as you were just sharing in this last segment, is that we have to be appreciative of the good, and
Right.
and lock in on that. You do more of that, and this is again what we talked about earlier, where that peace will begin to surface. You
Yes.
That calm,
Yes.
that steadiness when everybody else is panicking in an uproar, and this is especially so in times that we're living in right
In this
now.
society, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody in the world,
Yeah.
regardless of financial status, race, gender, or whatever, has reason to be concerned. You know,
Everybody.
but
Yeah.
how are you
No one's off. Yeah.
handling? Yes,
Yeah.
but how are you handling it?
Exactly.
Are you letting it?
Exactly.
Are you letting it control your life? Are you letting it control your peace, or are you allowing God to take the lead in this moment and saying, there must be a reason that you're allowing what you're allowing to happen, and I'm just sitting back, waiting to see what you're gonna do with that. And
Right.
I'm sitting, and I'm also waiting to receive what you would have for me to do in the
Right.
middle of it all, even if it's
Yes.
nothing more than being of encouragement to others who may not be processing it well, and they need a sound voice, a voice of reason, if you
Right.
will, speaking in a way that is in alignment with Him, that can give them that calm, that can give them that peace that they need, that might help them have more peaceful nights at home, instead of stressing and worrying every day that they turn on the news, or whatever is going on, and thinking the worst is
Right.
about to happen, when in fact
Mm.
you could be getting set up
It
for
could
your
be.
next blessing
Yeah. Yeah.
and don't even know it, even in
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
God knows how to bless even in the midst of chaos. He can dig all
Exactly.
through all of that, and there's your blessing waiting for you. You just got to
Right.
follow Him accordingly to it in order to receive it. Just understand that it's not going to always be easy. That there are going to be some rough paths. There's going to be some stormy ways. But if you're being led with Him, if you're in relationship with Him, it's going to all work itself out in the end. And just
Right.
knowing that is where you can get your peace and your comfort from. So again, thank you for sharing that. So
Thank you.
Angela, this has been an awesome conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I knew it was going to be great, and you've not only met but exceeded that expectation. And I'm
Thank
so thankful
you.
that
Thank you.
that not only I was, had the gumption to reach out to you, but that you were gracious enough to accept that.
Most definitely. Thank
You've
you.
blessed me, you've blessed my listeners, and I'm so appreciative of that. And just know that you're welcome to come back on the podcast anytime in the future, should you choose to do so, because I'm sure
Thank
there's more to
you.
you that you could share and be a further blessing. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I let you go, I do want to take out the opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you. So that being said, if you would, if there's anything that's going on right now or coming up down the road, professionally and or personally, that you'd like to share, we want to know all about it. We want to know how to support it, how to connect with it, how to keep up with you, and all of that good stuff. Because again, God's favor is on your life. You're doing some wonderful and magnificent things, and I want to make sure that not only myself but others that are tuning in have the opportunity to experience that, should they continue to follow you beyond this podcast episode. So what can we look forward to that's going on with Angela that we need to know about?
We got a couple of great things going on. I actually have to speak this weekend at a mother daughter dance.
Oh,
Just speaking on them, the importance of a mother daughter relationship. And so
okay.
that's this weekend in Arlington and Pantego. And so that's going to be, what is that, March 15th?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that going on. I have some teen summits and some grief conferences that I have to do this summer. So that's going to keep me busy. But I have some new exciting projects that are going to be released this spring, which is a new children's book as well as a new inspirational journal. So look out for those. You can find out all this information on my website at www.angelawynette.com. And also all the updates you can get on all of my social media platforms: TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. All of it's the same handle, Author Angela Wynette. And so I always put out little snippets, little inserts. I do Monday motivations where I'm just giving you words of encouragement to kind of help you through the day. Like I said, I have 5 books out. So here's just a little of those books. This is my first book, My Pain versus My Purpose. That one is just kind of like a tell all about me divorcing me, divorcing those toxic relationships, that bad mindset that I had about myself, and embracing God and who He had me to be. This is another book here called Through Your Eyes: My View versus the Worldview versus God's. This is a project I did with my friends. And so I got to interview different people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all nationalities, to kind of give people insight about, you may be struggling with something, dealing with something, but you're not the only one. And so to kind of give encouragement about how they handled it, how their upbringing impacted them, how, if they were religious based, how that impacted them, if they came from a 2-parent household or a single parent household, if they came from the suburbs, versus poverty, how all those things affect us in life and affect our decision making. And we might not necessarily pay attention to that, And so this book dives into that from different people from all walks of life, to kind of give you different perspectives, to let you know that, what, somebody else is going through this. I'm not going through this by myself. Um, this next book here is called Hurt, Healed, and Happy. That was a sequel to the first book, My Pain versus My Purpose. That book is basically a roadmap. And so it talks about, because everybody, like you said earlier, they always say, how do you go through these things and you're just happy?
Mm-hmm.
You still have a good, positive mindset. You're still wanting to help others. And so that book talks about step by step of how I was able to do that. How I was able to forgive myself, forgive others who hurt me, how I was able to heal, go to counseling, and the different resources that you can have to be able to accomplish true happiness and take off that mask that we wear and act like we are. Um, this next book here, this is a 365-day journal. It's called I Am Enough. That journal talks about, it's a daily reminder to stop and pour into yourself. Like I told you earlier, busy doesn't mean blessed. So just because you're just filling your calendar with things does not mean you're being successful. You just may have a lot of distractions, but you're not executing anything. So this makes you set a daily goal. And then at the end of the day, it makes you, have to check in. Did you complete that goal? Yes or no, or why? Are you the problem? Is it social media? Is it your friends that you hang around? Is it TV, reality shows? So it makes you do that. And then at the end of the year, it makes you do, a recap of what areas do you see that you grew in? What areas do you need to, kind of improve on? And so that journal, that's actually one of my top sellers. It can't keep that one in stock. And so people love that one. They do the project with their friends and stuff to help them kind of have accountability partners. And then this last one here, This was actually my first children's book. So this one is featuring all of my nieces and nephews. So they are the real life characters in this book. And that book is just basically a motivational book about breaking generational cycles, teaching them they can be whatever they want to be. You know, that society doesn't have to determine that for them. You don't have to be a statistic of a football player, a basketball player, but you can be that astronaut. You can be that doctor, you can be that psychologist, or you can be that congresswoman, whatever you choose. The world is endless. The possibilities are endless, but it's about pouring that into them early, teaching them that early, that they can do whatever they want to do, and that the limits are only within themselves, that nobody can determine that. And then I also have my t-shirt lines here. And so as I stated, we just dropped some new ones. So this is the first one. It's called I'm Possible, Not Impossible. And so that one again is inspired by the kids book, just teaching you that you can be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and that life is just a gentle reminder to wear it around sometimes to let you know I have this, I can do this. This next one here is called I Am Enough. That's based off of the journal. And again, that gentle reminder that you are enough. Stop that imposter syndrome of thinking that you don't have what it takes, thinking that you can't succeed. Again, that's all within yourself. You have the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do. You determine that. So stop speaking that negativity and start pouring into yourself, because what you say is the powers in the tongue. And so you start pouring that life into you. And then this one is because I'm qualified. And so that one was an inspiration from the current elections with Kamala Harris. And so, hey, we are qualified. Even if the world or society may not think we are qualified. So that is where that shirt came from, because I'm qualified. So again, these are all just motivational, inspirational. You can find these books as well as the shirts on my website, www.angelawynette.com. The books are also on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles under Angela Wynette. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to be able to personalize and sign and autograph the books for you, even if they're gifts for people. I love to do that. If you put in an order, I mail them off. So I've done international orders to Nigeria and everywhere. So,
Mm-hmm.
wherever you want, I am reachable. So feel free to DM me, contact me. My information, I'm always available, and I'm always good for insight and sharing with others.
Awesome, awesome. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Angela's doing her thing. Got books, we got shirts, got speaking events. She's all over social media, whichever platform you'd like to choose to connect with her. So definitely opportunities for you to be able to support, to meet her face to face at some of her events, or if you just can't do it, you at the very minimum you can keep her lifted up in prayer, and just again for God's favor as she's walking that path and doing the works that God has predestined for her to do, and be a blessing to many, not just locally but around the world. So that is great stuff, and I would definitely encourage you to support that. And if you haven't had enough book overload from Angela, I also of course have a book that I just recently came out with. It's my follow up to my original. It's the Blessings in the Street Special Edition.
Yeah.
So pick up your copy of that. It's available on Amazon as well. And if you want an autographed copy, you can message me directly, and I can arrange that for that to happen. And as Angela stated, I also will ship it to you directly, and you can have that for yourself as well. So we got some authors in the building, and we doing our things. We got shirts, we got all kind of stuff going
All of
on,
it.
and we just scratching the surface. We just getting started. So
Right.
so again, Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and truly has been a blessing. I thoroughly have enjoyed it, and as I said, you're welcome to come back anytime. I would love to
Thank
have you on
you.
board, because this has been awesome. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our podcast today, if this has been a blessing to you, you like how we're doing things here, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift, being transparent, being vulnerable, sharing our stories, keeping it raw, keeping it real with you,
Right.
looking for opportunities to drop some gems, drop some nuggets on you from our own personal experiences, so that you too can know that no adversity, no challenge in life is too big to overcome. But it all begins with you having that relationship with God. That is the
Right.
centerpiece of it all. And if you don't currently have that relationship, today is a mighty fine day to make that decision. We're not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we know from personal
Yes.
experience. He's all powerful, all knowing. He loves you unconditionally, wants nothing but the best for you. He wants you to be dependent upon him. He wants you to turn over those weights, those burdens, those pressures over to him. You don't have to do life by yourself.
Right.
You don't have to put on your
Right.
cape and try to fix yourself and fix everything that's going on around you. He can do all of that for you. All you have to do is receive the gift of him that he has to offer. If you receive his son who died on the cross for your sins, for mine, he understands we fall short. We all do fall short, but he
Right.
loves you and he wants that relationship with you. So don't miss out on that. Don't miss out on the blessing. Don't miss out on the opportunity to be equipped to be a blessing to others and being able to walk in the purpose that he has set forth for you, exclusively for you, as he has for all of us. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep hanging in there, leaning on God, of course, letting him lead the way, trusting him, walking in faith. Follow his path. Understand that, yes, while the storms may be shaky and have your world sometimes flipped upside down, it's not the end. It's not over. It's just the process of what you have to go through to ultimately get to that blessing. But with him, all things are possible. There's nothing too big for him to overcome. So just remember in that, trust it, and embrace it wholeheartedly, and he will not lead you astray. So until next time, you take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you at our next show. Have a great rest of your day.